Yeah, I posted the slides for this lecture yesterday, so it should all be in week 3.
It's not there, Professor.
Okay, let me double check. Let me stop sharing for a second and go on. Were you guys able to see all of the assignment information?
Yeah, the assignments are there, just not the lecture slides for today.
Okay, let me upload those before we get started then. Oh, I have the class hidden for today. All right, you should be able to see everything now.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so we can get started. So chapter 2 is about evaluating nutrition information. So it's about different kinds of research studies and different types of information that we might see when getting nutrition facts presented to us. So first, I thought we could do a little bit of a review just to see what you guys think. So we'll do some true or false. So the first question is, scientists use anecdotes as scientific evidence to support their findings. Would you say this is true or false? All right, I see we have a few trues in the chat. The answer is false. So when we see scientific evidence, this has to be based on fact, not based on what we think. An anecdote is kind of like a personal story, but scientific evidence is based in fact and research. All right, the next one is, popular health related magazines typically publish articles that have been peer reviewed. Is this true or false? Okay, I'm seeing a nice mix of trues and falses here. So this is false. Any kind of popular magazine that's publishing an article, that information isn't usually being peer reviewed. Peer reviewed research goes through other researchers with a scientific background who are going through this information and verifying it. So when an article gets published in a magazine, um, you can take a look. Sometimes there will be references in it, sometimes there won't be. But any research that has been peer reviewed, all of the facts have been looked over, and everything is verified to be true and based on existing literature. All right, the next one is, by conducting observational epidemiological studies, medical researchers can determine risk factors that may influence health. Is this true or false? Okay, I see a bunch of trues. You guys are right. This one is true. All right, the next one, dietary supplements include vitamin pills as well as products that contain echinacea, ginseng, and garlic. Is this true or false? All right, I'm seeing a bunch of a nice mix here. This answer is true. So dietary supplements are anything diet related that supplements the diet. So anything that you're not really eating. So a vitamin would be a supplement, garlic could be a supplement if that's what it's being used for. and a bunch of other supplements too, which we'll go into more detail about later. And the last one is, in general, registered dietitian nutritionists are reliable sources of food and nutrition information. Is this true or false? Okay, good. I am happy to see no falses here. Registered dietitian nutritionists are the most reliable sources of food and nutrition information. Okay, so first we'll go over the scientific method. So in the past, nutrition facts and dietary practices were based on intuition, common sense, things that have been passed down among family members, and different anecdotes. So basically, they weren't very fact-based. But today, nutrition experts rely on research collected from scientific research, which is something that is evidence-based. So the scientific method has 7 steps to it. So, and it's important that when you're doing any kind of research that you follow a scientific method. So the first step of the scientific method is to make observations that generate questions. The second step is to formulate a hypothesis to explain these events. Then you want to review different studies that are related to this question. Then you want to design your own study, perform tests, and collect data to try and answer this question. Then you want to look at the data that you got from your study and make conclusions based on the results. Then you want to share these results with your peers, which is where a peer review may come in. And then that leads to conducting more research, and the results of that research can confirm or disagree with the findings from before. And then when you're conducting more research, you would follow the scientific method again. So there's a bunch of different types of lab experiments that can be done. So an experiment is a systematic way of testing a hypothesis, which is the question in your experiment. And experiments are often done on rats or mice before research is performed on humans. So an in vivo experiment is something that's conducted on an animal beforehand, like a mouse. And an in vitro experiment is done in a test tube on cells or different parts of living organisms. That's not done on something that's living. So, evidence based information is information that's based on the results of a high quality scientific study. So, this study would be peer reviewed. The research would be done using the scientific method. And an anecdote is based on a report of personal experience. So, in studies, when you're doing them, you normally have the treatment group, which is the group being studied that receives a treatment. And then you have the control group, which is the group being studied that doesn't receive a treatment. So, let's say you're doing a study on the effects of using a dietary supplement, let's say a vitamin D supplement, on headaches. So the treatment group would get a vitamin D supplement pill, and the control group might get a placebo, which is a fake pill that looks exactly like the vitamin D pill. And they would be, and but it's not, doesn't have anything in it. So that would be your treatment group that gets the medication, and the control group that gets nothing. And then a variable is a personal characteristic or a factor that changes um, and can influence an outcome. So let's say if you were testing vitamin D and the effects of it on headaches, you would want to make sure that nobody was taking like a Tylenol or an aspirin in that study, because that's a variable that would affect the results of that study. So most experiments that involve animals or humans have the treatment group and the control group. So that's what allows scientists to compare results. Otherwise, it'd be really hard to know what's working and what's not working. So here, let's say this example that they give us is we're measuring two groups of 50 mice over 1 year. So one gets a intervention, one doesn't. And then we study that data after 1 year and we see what their um, percentage of signs of illness were after that treatment or control. So, an experimental study involving humans can be done to obtain information about health outcomes related to specific dietary practices. So, members of a large group of human subjects are randomly assigned to either the treatment group or the control group. And this kind of experiment is known as a randomized control trial. So it's random because let's say you have a list of 100 participants. You can't say, I think this person would really benefit from the vitamin D supplement if it works because they have really bad headaches. It has to be unbiased. So they're just randomized into two different groups. So, like we just spoke about, a placebo is a fake treatment, like a fake pill, an injection, or a medical procedure, and the placebo effect is a positive response to a placebo. So, just back to the example with, let's say, using vitamin D for headaches, if a person thinks they're getting vitamin D and that's going to resolve their headaches, it's possible that they're just going to report less headaches, even though they're getting a placebo pill. Okay, so a double blind study. A double-blind study is an experimental design in which neither the participants or the researchers know of the participants' group assignment. And a single-blind study is where the researchers know which subjects are in the treatment and control groups. So let's say we were a group of 100 people and they randomized us into two groups. One group got the vitamin D supplement, one group got the placebo. In a double-blind study, this would be done with a computer, and the researchers would have no clue who got what intervention. In a single blind study, the participants wouldn't know who got the intervention, but the researchers would know who was in the treatment group and who was in the control group. Right. Does anybody have any questions so far? No. Okay. If anyone does have any questions, you can just put it in the chat or raise your hand at any point. Okay, so epidemiology is the study of the occurrence, distribution and causes of health problems in populations. So this is often evaluated using the NHANES, which is a National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. So then we'll go over some observational epidemiological study types. So a case control study is where individuals with a health condition are matched to people with similar characteristics who do not have the condition. So let's say you would take 50-year-old females living in New York. So you would have a group of 50-year-old females living in New York who are healthy and 50 year old females living in New York who have breast cancer. So you're taking two comparable groups and comparing them with each other. A cohort study is where you collect information and analyze variables from a large group of people over time. And these can be retrospective, which is looking backwards, or prospective, which is looking forwards. So, a retrospective study, that's when you're looking back. So, researchers collect information about a group's past exposures and identify current health outcomes. So, a retrospective study would be if you had a group of 100 people who had gone to the doctor, let's say in 2020 and got labs done, and they went to the doctor in 2022 and got labs done, and you're trying to answer a research question, and you're looking at those labs where there's no bias because everything was done already and trying to come to conclusions. But whereas with a prospective study, you're looking forward. So this follows a group of people into the future and looks for factors that may contribute to changes in their health. So let's say you would take a group of 100 people, draw labs in 2025, and say, please come back for a follow up in 2026. We're trying to figure out if this type of lab leads to this type of cancer. And it's really important that we get that information from you. So that would be a prospective cohort study. So this is just like we went over. So in an observational study, you have a cohort. It could be retrospective or prospective. And these are just two examples of different types of retrospective and prospective studies. All right, then there are some limitations to epidemiological studies. So epidemiological studies can't establish causation, which is whether one factor causes another, but they can be used to determine if simultaneous events within a population are correlated with each other. So, what's a correlation? So, a correlation is a relationship between variables that occurs when two variables change over the same period. So, a direct correlation results when two variables change in the same direction. And a negative correlation occurs when two variables change in opposite directions. So, what appears to be a correlation between a behavior and an outcome might be a coincidence. So, here's just some examples of direct and indirect correlations. So, one example of a direct correlation.
Lady was like, wait.
I'm sorry, is everybody just able to mute themselves, please? All right, thank you. Okay, so one example of a direct correlation is as a population's intake of sugar sweetened soft beverages increases, the percentage of overweight people in that population increases. Then an inverse correlation would be as a population's fruit intake increases, the percentage of people in that population with hypertension decreases. So when we're analyzing data, drawing conclusions, and reporting findings, researchers use a variety of statistical methods to analyze the data. So these methods may allow researchers to find relationships between variables and health outcomes. So researchers summarize findings and seek to publish them in scientific articles. Articles submitted for publication in scientific journals undergo peer review before being published. And peer review is a critical analysis of the study and its findings, which is conducted by a group of peers, which are experts involved in related research. Um, and I'll just give an example, just to go back for a second, of peer review. So peer review usually happens at every step in a study. So right now I'm working on my doctorate and I'm working on, let's say, the first part of my research study. And I spent months writing a paper, I thought we were good to go. And then came the peer review portion of the paper where my professors found two experts in the field. I'm doing mine on older adults. So they found two experts in older adult nutrition, and they both had to review my paper and approve it before they were willing to let it get to the next step. So it's really important in order for your research to be trusted as valid that people who are respected in the field and are able to and are considered experts in the field or in related research look over your study before it moves on and gets published. So, research bias is where scientists are expected to collect and analyze data in an honest and objective manner. So, they avoid the influences of personal attitudes or biases. And peer reviewed scientific journals require authors to disclose funding sources. So, this reveals potential conflicts of interest. So, one really good example of this is there's a lot of studies done on the benefits of avocados for health. A lot of studies. And if you look up like health benefits of avocado in PubMed or any other scientific database, you'll see tons of articles. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of these articles where it says research disclosures or financial funding, a lot of them are from different avocado companies. So different farms that grow avocados. So they sponsor and fund research on the benefits of avocados. So that's why it's always really important to look who's funding research so you can make sure that it's not somebody who has maybe a benefit in this research turning out a certain way. So after the results of a study are published, it's important to share the findings with other scientists, such as in a peer-reviewed journal. And popular sources of nutrition information, like magazines or the internet, are meant to catch your attention and generally do not undergo peer review, and they may feature incorrect or biased information. So, conflicting study results are often the result of different study methods, and the science of nutrition is constantly evolving. So, old beliefs and practices are discarded when they're not supported by more recent scientific evidence. So, to become a critical consumer of nutrition information, it's important to not assume that information in popular media is reliable. So, you want to be wary of ads for nutrition related products that rely on testimonials, which are personal endorsements of the product, and different anecdotes. So, let's say right now, Ozempic is really popular. So, you can find articles about Ozempic everywhere. But before taking Ozempic, it would be really important to read nutrition research on it, as opposed to, let's say, going on Instagram and looking at testimonials of people who have taken Ozempic and have benefited from Ozempic, because people with positive experiences tend to post about it. People with negative experiences tend to post about it. But it's important to see what the facts are before trusting somebody's opinion. Also, consumers are responsible for questioning and researching the accuracy of nutrition information. And consumers should be alert for pseudoscience, which is the presentation of information masquerading as factual and obtained by scientific methods. All right, so you always want to ask questions when you're looking at nutrition information that's been shared. So, what motivates the authors, promoters, or sponsors to provide this information? Um, like going back to before with the example of the avocados. So, what would motivate an avocado company to publish good-looking research on the importance of eating an avocado a day? It makes them money. And is the source scientific, such as from an article from a peer-reviewed nutrition journal? If the study cited, how is the research conducted? And does the source cite articles from respected nutrition or medical journals or mention reliable experts? So, this is another thing that's really important. You always want to look at what the sources are. Um, Especially now when it's so easy to type things into ChatGPT and try to get answers. A lot of what ChatGPT is fantastic, but a lot of what it tells you is also not true. So if you and anyone can do this, it's a really good test. If you put a question into ChatGPT and say, "Give me 10 references," to answer the question, chances are, if you start Googling those references, they don't exist. Um, so it's always just really important to double check any information that's being given to you and that you're trying to trust. So, what is quackery? Quackery is promoting useless medical treatments. And practicing medicine without proper training is illegal, but providing nutrition information and advice without proper training is legal. So, you always want to look for red flags, look for promises of quick and easy remedies. Like, for example, if you take this pill, you'll lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. Which is also a claim that sounds way too good to be true. You want to look for scare tactics, like if you don't take this, you're going to gain 20 pounds. You want to look for personal attacks on registered dietitian nutritionists or conventional scientists. And you want to look for statements about the superiority of certain dietary supplements or unconventional medical practices. So, you also want to look at the reliance on testimonials and anecdotes. You want to look for information that promotes a product's benefits while overlooking its risks. You want to look for vague, meaningless, or scientific sounding terms, and you want to look for sensational statements with incomplete references or sources. You also want to avoid recommendations based on a single study, information concerning nutrients or human physiology that's not supported by reliable scientific evidence, and results disclaimers, usually in a smaller, difficult to read print. So, same thing, you see a claim online, you want to look it up. If you can't find any information to back it, there's usually a reason. Um, but if it's something that you think can really be true, I recommend looking deeper into it, asking an expert to help you look deeper into it, and just trying to get the facts before making a decision on if this is something that makes sense and is a reliable thing to be doing. So here's just an example of a results disclaimer. So here you could see on the bottle, it's a weight loss supplement that says lose to up to 10 pounds in a week with an asterisk after. So it's saying that inherited biological, environmental, and psychological factors impact an person's ability to lose weight. Also, each person's usual daily food intake and exercise habits differ. As a result of these and other factors, individual weight loss results may vary, and typical results are not possible to determine. So, you take this supplement, you're thinking, I take it on Sunday. By Sunday, I lose 10 pounds by the next week. And, chances are that's not going to happen. So, you also want to use the internet wisely. You want to be careful and consider sources of internet information. You want to consider who or what organization sponsors the site. Is this information being used to promote sales? Is there a comprehensive disclaimer like the manufacturer is not responsible or obligated to verify statements? When you're searching for nutrition information on the internet, you want to be a careful consumer. You want to look at multiple sites and you want to make sure they're reliable sites. So a .gov or .org is typically more reliable. You want to rely on sites managed or reviewed by qualified health professionals. So let's say FDA.gov is a more reliable site than somebody's blog that they're writing. And you want to look for the HON code on symbol on the website. So you also want to not trust information at a site that doesn't indicate valid sources. So authors and their credentials should be identified. So let's say if you are looking on a blog post, you want to make sure that there's references at the bottom, that it was written by like a reliable source, like a registered dietitian. And you want to be wary of sites that have surveys for you to complete, or advertisements or promotions. So, if you're going onto a website to read about using Ozempic for weight loss and they're offering a survey to the first 10 people, like a raffle to the first 10 people who sign up, probably not the best website or most reliable source of information. You also don't want to trust a site that attacks medical or scientific establishments, and you want to be wary of commercial sites that end with a .com without checking if they're reliable, even if they link to reliable websites. So there's no standard definition for a nutritionist or a nutritionalist. Doctors that generally don't have enough coursework in nutrition, and reliable sources of information include nutrition professors at colleges and universities with nutrition and or dietetic departments, registered dietitians, and registered dietitian nutritionists. So those are usually the two credentials that a dietitian would have, and these are the only legally protected credentials for a registered dietitian. And then another one that's not mentioned here is there's a CNS, which is a certified nutrition specialist. That's also considered to be a protected credential for a nutrition specialist. So to become a registered dietitian, there's three major areas of the field. So there's clinical nutrition, which is where you're working in a hospital or a nursing home and you're dealing with the more clinical side of things. There's community nutrition, which typically leans more towards like program, like food programs and counseling. And then there's food systems management, which is more with like the food service aspect of nutrition and dietetics. So to become a dietitian, you want to complete an Ascend accredited master's degree program. You want to complete a supervised practice program or dietetic internship with a professional practice experience, and you need to pass the national registration exam. All right, then to go over dietary supplements. So, according to the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1944, a dietary supplement adds to a person's intake and contains one or more dietary ingredients, including nutrients or botanicals, like an herb or other plant material. It's taken by mouth and it's a concentrate, metabolite, constituent, or extract. So, dietary supplements can include a nutrient pill, like a vitamin or a mineral product, a protein powder, or an herbal extract. So, conventional medical care is healthcare practices that are widely accepted and used by mainstream medical practitioners, such as surgical procedures, FDA approved medications, and dietary patterns that promote good health. While alternative healthcare are healthcare practices that are not widely accepted and used by conventional medical practitioners, such as the use of dietary supplements, yoga, chiropractic manipulations, and meditation. So, when the two types of healthcare are combined, it's called integrative medicine because they're integrating two different approaches to healthcare. So, how are dietary supplements regulated? So, dietary supplements are regulated in the category of foods, non traditional, not as medication. So, supplements can bypass many strict FDA regulations that are imposed on different drugs, and the FDA regulates labels on supplements and claims allowed on them. So, the FDA sets quality standards but does not test the supplements to make sure the standards are met. So, supplement manufacturers can choose to have quality testing done by non-governmental agencies to provide a seal of approval on their label. So the USP is one example of a company that will do this testing, but it's not a guarantee that the supplement is safe or effective. So you want to make sure that you're using dietary supplements wisely. When they're used properly, micronutrient supplements are generally safe. Herbal supplements may contain toxins in them, and highly toxic or cancer-causing plants include comfrey, pennyroyal, sassafras, kava, lobelia, and ma huang. So before you take a dietary supplement, you always want to determine if the supplement's actually necessary for you, and you want to discuss the supplement with your physician or a dietitian. Um, an example is, let's say, a healthy college student eats a balanced diet, taking a multivitamin. Normally, it's not necessary. You're probably getting like 100% of your vitamin and mineral needs through your diet. So, while it won't necessarily harm you to take it, it's not necessarily necessary for you to take it either. So, it's always good to just run that by a medical professional, whether it be a dietitian or your doctor. And you always want to consult with a doctor before giving these products to children. And then you want to consult with the doctor as soon as you develop signs and symptoms of a serious illness, especially if you're taking one of these supplements. So you want to be wary about claims made about a supplement's benefit and investigate by searching for reliable information. You want to determine the hazards associated with taking the supplement, like the risks versus benefits, and you want to avoid using dietary supplements as substitutes for nutritious foods. So, you don't want to take a multivitamin every day and then say, I'm not going to eat a vegetable again. It shouldn't be a substitute. It should really be a balancing act. All right. And that's it for today's lecture. Does anybody have any questions before we move on?
Yeah, I do. I put it in the chat, and it was something you said earlier about conflict of interest.
Mhm.
When in research, is the raw data itself questionable as well? Just in general, like since meaning that, let's say, for example, like Bayer, which is like the biggest seeding company now, that because they bought Monsanto, um, they made some research on non Monsanto like seeds. Like is their
Okay.
data, like still questionable or is still valid by the scientific community?
So I think that's a really good question, and it would depend on how the research was done. So if they're conducting the research and they're funding it, but let's say they're funding the research at a university and the science and they're really not involved in the research, and the scientists who are doing it are using a valid study method, like let's say they're doing a randomized controlled trial, the researchers either do or do not know who's getting what, um, and the data is protected, meaning it's still collected in a valid way. Um, that study would still be valid, and most studies need to go through a scientific review, like an internal review board, which is a scientific board of people who approve the study before it can even get done. So as long as the study goes through IRB approval and they agree that the way the study is being done is appropriate for the data to be collected in the scientific community, then unless something happens in between those phases, the data would still be valid.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, so let me share the assignment that is due. All right, can everyone see the assignment on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Perfect. Okay, so this is our first assignment. It's our research assignment, and it's going to be due on October 24th. So the purpose of this assignment is to know where to obtain reliable sources of nutrition information and to learn how to evaluate articles, ads, videos, and or products found in magazines, newspapers, or other popular sources. So just to go over what you need to do for this assignment, if you want to choose a popular media article, a pamphlet, a marketing brochure about a dietary and or weight loss supplement or a specific nutritional behavior. So one example would be like drinking apple cider vinegar every day, and a claiming that you will achieve weight loss or muscle growth or another specific health benefit when you use this supplement or adopt this nutritional behavior. So this popular media article can be in the form of a written article or of a video. So you want to read and watch this article or a video carefully and evaluate its credibility. So you want to list at least 5 aspects of the article that led you to either trust or not trust it, and consider different strategies discussed in the lecture we just reviewed to help complete this. After you list these 5 aspects, you'll go to PubMed, which is a research website. It shows different published research articles, and you want to conduct a search to find a research article on this topic. So you want to enter a relevant search term. You want to filter for 10 years worth of research based on the publication date on the left side. And you want to choose one review article and one original research article that's most closely related to your topic. And if you can't find articles related to your topic, choose a topic that is like attached enough to it. and find articles on that topic. Okay. And then you want to read the articles and summarize your thoughts on whether or not the research evidence supports the claims made in the video about the dietary supplement or the weight loss product. Then you want to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 how the article or video correctly or incorrectly presented the information, and justify your reading briefly by comparing the claims in the article to the conclusions from the articles that you read from PubMed. Then you want to find at least 3 more references for research articles related to the topic. All right, does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, let's see. How long does the paper have to be? So I uploaded in Brightspace a separate file that has a template that you can use to do the assignment. So as long as you answer all the questions, um, there's no limit on the paper. It's written more in like a question and answer format. Yeah, that's okay. MLA style's okay. Okay, and if you have any questions while you're doing the assignment, you can always email me and let me know and we can discuss it. Okay, and then just before we sign off, we'll do a little bit of a review game similar to what we did in our first class to go over what we learned in our last class. And then afterwards, I'll post the Kahoot on Brightspace so you guys can use it when you study for your first exam. Okay, another question. To confirm, it can be an essay or Q&A style. So, no, it won't be an essay. Just you'll follow the question and answer format that's posted on Brightspace. You can just use it and like download it, and you can just answer everything in there. Right. All right. I think we have like 15 people that still need to join.
Do I have to just log in with my Google account or
Oh, you can go to to kahoot.it, this link over here, and then put in this game pin.
oh okay, thank you.
No problem. Sorry if that wasn't clear.
No, no, no. It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we're going to use the Kahoot as attendance for today. So for your participation, whatever you get on the Kahoot doesn't matter, but similar to last time, we'll use it as participation for coming to the class. All right, we can give it another minute and then we'll get started. Is anybody having difficulty getting in? All right. Okay, first question. According to the main nutrition related goal of Healthy People 2030, Americans should improve their health by. All right, so the correct answer is that the main nutrition related goal of Healthy People 2030 is that Americans should improve their health by making nutritious foods more available. Right. A person's blank is not a major influence on their food selection practices. Okay, good. A person's blood type is not a major influence on their food selection practices. Which of the following statements is true? Okay, so an essential nutrient must be supplied by the diet. That is true. Which of the following conditions is not a leading cause of death in the United States? Okay, good. Tuberculosis is not a leading cause of death in the United States. According to the US Department of Agriculture, today's Americans consume more what than in 1970? Okay, today's Americans consume more cheese than Americans did in the 1970s. Estimate the grams of fat in a serving of oil that has 400 calories. How would you get that number? Okay, so to estimate the grams of fat in a serving of oil, um, an oil is a fat, usually has no carbs in it, no protein, no alcohol, and a grams of and 1 gram of fat is equal to 9 calories. So to get the number of grams of fat in a serving of oil with 400 calories, you would divide that number by 9. A serving of food supplies 136 calories from protein. Based on this information, how many grams of protein are in the serving? Okay, so if a serving of food contains 136 calories from protein, you want to assume there's no carbs in it, no fat in it. You would divide this number by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram of protein. So you would do 136 divided by 4, which equals 34. A beverage supplies 63 calories from alcohol. To determine how many grams of alcohol are in that amount of the beverage, you would. Okay, so an gram of alcohol has 7 calories per gram. So if we're taking a drink that has 63 of its calories from alcohol, then you would want to divide the number 63 by 7 to find out how many grams of alcohol are in that drink. So to estimate the grams of carbohydrates in a sugar sweetened drink that has 100 calories per serving, you would. Okay, so to estimate the grams of carbohydrates in a sugar sweetened drink that has 100 calories in it, every gram of carbohydrates has 4 calories per gram. So you'd want to divide 100 by 4. So if Archie weighs 72 kilograms, that is approximately how many pounds? Okay, good. So to convert kilograms to pounds, multiplies the number of kilograms by 2.2 pounds. So 72 kilograms would be 158.4 pounds. So 158 is the closest number to that. Okay, so Jerry's height is 65 inches. What is his approximate height in centimeters? Okay, so to convert from inches into centimeters, you would multiply by 2.54. So 65 inches times 2.54 would be 165 centimeters. Which of the following foods is the most nutrient dense per serving? Okay, so fat-free milk is the most nutrient dense per serving. Which of the following nutrients is a micronutrient? Okay, so magnesium is a micronutrient. Protein, water, and fat are all macronutrients. Which of the following foods is the most energy dense per serving? Okay, chocolate chip cookies are the most energy dense per serving. So energy dense is foods that are higher in calories, and nutrient dense are foods that are higher in nutrients. All right, for the last question, which of the following foods is both energy and nutrient dense? Okay, good. Peanut butter is the both energy and nutrient dense. That's because it's a high fat food, so it's high in calories, and it has a lot of protein and it's high in other vitamins and minerals. All right, great job, guys. Um, all right, I just see a few questions in the chat. So, the paper is individual. You cannot work with others for the paper. Um, all right, before we sign off, does anyone have any other questions? Okay, the exam is on October 27th, and that will cover chapters 1, 2, and 3.
Are you gonna have like any type of study, like a study guide or like practice quizzes that we could do?
Yeah, I'm gonna upload a study guide before the exam, and then I'm gonna upload all the Kahoots that we do on these chapters also, so you guys can use those to review.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, I'll hang back for a few minutes in case anybody has any questions. But if not, have a good night. And our next class meeting is asynchronous. So I will get that posted up before that date. I believe next week follows next week, the Monday is on a different day of the week, but it will be up before the class.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one, Professor.
Thank you so much. You too.